Hello, welcome to another edition of Strange New Pod. I'm your Fleet Admiral and host, Julian Brown, alongside the best bridge crew, this side of the latest production of Voyager on Ice. Get your tickets now. Too soon? Too soon?
Yeah.
No?
Well,
is it doing one of these?
It's not too soon. It's been 30 years. We're good.
Boom!
Oh, it has been 30
It
years.
has been 30 years. This
Not-
whole year is the
not-
celebration.
Not for season 5, but yeah.
True.
25.
Yeah, 25. No, 30. Right?
You mean?
Ooh. Well, I
30
mean,
was the premiere, and it was season 1.
Right, and
in-
some of
we're
them are
doing an episode
25.
of
You're
season
right.
5.
You're right.
Like in 2 more years, we'll be.
I
at
know I can't count,
TNG's
but I can
40th
count.
I
this
can't. I can
much.
never count. Period.
You're supposed to teach me math.
No,
You
that's
remember that?
yes, I remember that. Yeah. Oh my god, I still can't get over that comment. Captain Hawk is here in the biggest test of is he a hologram this week? Could Hawk's program survive 15 years in the ice? We're gonna find out.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
A Canadian program here.
Yeah. Ed Praetor Giraffe is here and is going to somehow find a way to blame this on the Romulans. They kidnapped Jordy again. That's it. And they made
Time
Voyager
shenanigan.
crash. Yeah. That's it. That's what happened. Welcome back. How we doing?
We're doing okay.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're still here.
We're still here.
We're still here. Yeah.
It's my birthday week. Saturday is my birthday. And of course, I'm spending a good portion of this week sick as a dog. Yay. But I'm here because I love Timeless, I love you guys, and I love Star Trek. So here we are. It is the continuation of our favorite episode series. And this week, we're talking about my favorite episode of Star Trek, and that is Voyager's 100th episode, Timeless. A visually striking episode, as well as a great time travel story directed by the one, the only, LeVar Burton. Before we get to the patrons, I'm just going to start this episode right with a fun fact, because we have Michael Stetson in the chat who says, I didn't work on that episode, but I was at Foundation Imaging when it was done. The snow elements were all custom filmed elements created in the back on a big table covered in baking soda. The more you know, right? That's awesome. I love it. I want more
And
fun
also-
facts.
Welcome.
Isn't
to our
that
chat.
episode that started by just like an image of like Voyager in ice, and that's all they had, and they're like, let's write an episode with this.
That's literally it. And they knew they had that, and they knew that they wanted it to be dialogue free. And that was it. And then they wrote the script. They knew, yeah, we're going to get into it. So much like fun. Oh, I fucking love this episode. Before we do that, before we start talking any more about the episode, Hawk, we need to thank our amazing Patreon collective members at the Ready Room level and above, please.
God, I don't have the outline so good.
I kind of had a feeling, so I gave it to Hawk.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to Simon Stager, Jeff Reeve, Mariah Gossett, Tallulah, Jen Stein, Tina Alexander, Joe Saporito, Noe Santos, Kang Wee, Takako Nagumo, Fernando Nogales, SMK, Colin Davidson, Shouterhand 2049, Jesco, Michael Graham, Emily and Travis, Maggie Light, Wayne Ritz, Skona Vark, Sean, Jay Howard, Mahalani Uchiyama, Matt Harker, Joshua Lewis, Tara Pollen, Slope 74, Rude Parakeet, Aaron W., Carl Angoli, Michael Kwan, Caitlin, Elizabeth Dean, Jim McMahon, Sedano 317, Puka Hair, Three Fries Short, Cat Tip, Tripping the Reed Alert Over a Pineapple, Sean Manning, Asher at the Bat, Chris Waterman, RHCB, Martin Simpson, Norman Buckwald, David Prime Hildebrand, Taryn J. Robinson, Rod Grinner, Eric the Red, Trouble, Jamie Roberts, Honeyberry, Paul Taylor Pitt, Brett Jones, Michelle P., Margin Walker 82, Melissa Bartell, Jesse Robbins, Kim, and Chris Finoglio. Thank you once again. You keep the lights running.
Woo woo. Thank you. You guys all freaking rock. You all are also going to be getting some mail tomorrow. So that's going in the mail. As always, a big thank you to our Badmirals, our EPs, Simon Stager, Chris Waterman, Tara Poland, Brett Jones, Dana, Matt Harker, and Jim McMahon. You keep our quantum slipstream drive running and from running into any phase variances. Like I said, mail. Some of you in our 10 forward and above should have already maybe gotten some envelopes with some stickers and some postcards. And the rest of you fine folks, your envelopes are in my car. They are going in the mailbox tomorrow. Tara says we prefer a clean-shaven giraffe.
Oh, yeah, because I'm the evil twin. I was like, because I shaved my goatee. You can tell today.
Don't knock the beard. Don't knock the beard. Yeah. We have like some new names in the chat. Chris is back in the chat. What's up, buddy? Long time no see.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, Foz Rotten, that's a new name. Welcome. Felix Dax, by the way, wrote, and I don't have the button on my damn Roadcaster anymore for some reason. Fun fact time. The Eric fun fact time. It's not on here for some reason. I don't know what's up with that. I'm a little disappointed. But here we are. Very quick news. WonderCon's coming up, Trev?
WonderCon's coming up. Oh, yeah. It's the last weekend of March in Anaheim, in sweet, sweet California. If you're around, I will be there. I'm also a panelist on a Star Trek panel on Friday. More info to come soon. WonderCon is, we're winging it this year.
That's a fact.
I don't know what I'm doing. It's happening though. But yeah, it's the first big con of the year, so you know it's always happy time to meet all the people again. I don't know if Star Trek will have anything for us. Maybe it's an official con, so I mean not an official Star Trek con, but the last year we had exclusive preview of Discovery episodes on the big screen.
Ooh.
We had some, yeah. So fingers crossed. Maybe we'll get something this year. Let's see.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Trek Long Island's also, you should have that on your radar. May, it's coming soon. We will be there. We have our panels sent. We haven't gotten them approved yet, but things are happening. Again, very much on the fly.
Plane stop falling, I will be there.
Yeah, exactly. Luckily, I can drive. If the planes, I would not be flying. That's me personally, but
stop saying things like that. What do you see? If I'm not here, it's his fault.
I'll accept that. I will totally accept that. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. I don't think
if you're in San Diego, I don't know, but this weekend is Julian's birthday, but it's also St. Patrick's Day parade, and I will be on the parade with the good folk of the Sci-Fi Coalition. So yeah, I'll be green. I'll be
That's
alfalfa.
awesome.
That's so cool. Love it.
So yeah, if you're around, wave. Come, it's a fun event.
Nice.
Probably- yeah.
Very cool. I don't think we have any other news. It's a light news week. But you can get your hands on some awesome new Star Trek swag over at heroesandvillains.com. Like this Starfleet United Federations of Planets shirts. I'm sure this is like standard issue when you join Starfleet. It's like when you go to like the Army recruitment center, like
The
you sign
welcome
up,
package.
they give you they give you a shirt. It's kind of like that. It's really cool. I like it. If you don't want to buy Star Trek stuff, you could use our code to buy anything. Hawk, Eric, and I have like nonstop been talking about Daredevil Born Again, and they just
have some awesome Daredevil stuff out right now.
the Daredevil shirts they just dropped. I might try to get some. They're badass. So use our code STRANGE to get 20% off your first order. Go ahead, Giraffe.
No finish. I
That's
have
it.
one
Use
here.
our code STRANGE to get 20% off your first order. Because the stuff that they're putting up, this shirt, there's a letter
The
jacket.
varsity jacket
I
is
wore it the other day
so
too. It's not
beautiful.
just beautiful, it's comfortable as hell.
It's really warm too. It's
So-
nice stuff.
Yeah.
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 I just wanted to say that I've been recording a lot. So if you're not bored of me and you want to listen to me more, I was on Yum Yum Pod about the chase. If you want to hear more about the chase, why would you? But I'm on Constar Podcast also on a round table about Voyager. It's not out yet. And next weekend, 22nd, I'll be on the Trexperts. On Friday.
Hey, nice.
So
I think we're
small
making
stuff.
the Yum Yum Pod rounds because I'm going to be on in a couple of weeks to talk about.
Yeah. I asked the same episode than you. And they're like, I don't know if Julian wants to see you. I was like, okay.
That's rude. I would have talked to I would talk the finale with you. I'm talking the disco finale. Speaking of, that's coming up in a couple of weeks, in a few weeks when we're done wrapping up our favorite episode series. We're doing finally our Disco season 5 look back and review. Watch alongs are starting soon. I just found a shit ton of our stickers from like various disco eras. So during the watch alongs, we're going to be doing like a spin the wheel for your favorite disco sticker. It's going to be fun.
Everything needs to go.
Yeah, everything needs to go because I just organized it all into Ziploc bags. Let's get the show on the road. Let's do the Strange New Loop. And I had to get shippy. I had to get shippy for this one because it's a ship crash episode and not that kind of shippy. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay,
I
then.
just broke Giraffe's heart.
Yeah.
What is your favorite starship destruction or crash? Speaking of the planes falling out of the sky.
Oh, boy.
And why?
Oh, for me, it's got to be cause and effect. Yeah, the ship blowing up over and over.
Oh, in
and over again, and
TNG,
that's-
yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Caught in
that's a
time
good
loop.
one.
Harkens a little bit to this episode. I don't know if maybe it's a little bit of a spiritual successor to that, trying to correct a mistake. Obviously very different, but yeah, still my favorite to ship blowing up moment, because it happened right at the cold open.
Yeah.
For me, I would say the destruction of the protostar in Supernova.
Oh.
It meant, the destruction of hologram Janeway also, and it was so emotional, and I cried so much. Yeah, because I was gonna say Discovery was not destroyed, just sent away, but the protostar, in Supernova too.
That's a good answer.
See, I found an answer. I was like, think fast, woman.
That's a really good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm not going to say timeless just because we're talking about that episode tonight, but I will say, because I think it counts as a crash, Jean-Luc using the Enterprise E as a battering ram in Nemesis and just completely crashing it into the
The scimitar.
the scimitar Shinzon ship, and just like Jean-Luc's cockiness during that scene mixed with like sending a text message to Deanna to like ram it is just like such a mood. I love it.
I want to add, because like Protostar is like very emotional, but the badass one that I really like is when they crash the Enterprise in Beyond, and then you have like the
Oh yeah,
the
flip?
the what's her face like gets
crushes
crushed.
her. Yeah,
Yeah, that was like insane.
great answer. Got some good answers in the chat. Jim McMahon, Generations, when the D crashes, Foz Rotten follows that up with Generations just looked so cool. Maggie Light, Year of Hell, when Janeway crashed into the ship. Great answer.
Oh,
That's
yes.
a good answer. Yes.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Colin, just for the sheer effects of it all, the crash of the D on Viridian 3. Hold and modify NCC 1701, search for Spock. Amazing sequence and broke my heart. Yeah, the original getting destroyed definitely is tears at the heartstrings. Yeah, these are all great answers, and we are moving right along. So let's get into our review and deep dive into the 100th episode of Star Trek Voyager, and that is Timeless. Our order tonight will go Hawk Draft, followed by myself, and so let's talk about just like the premise of this episode for anybody who hasn't been able to watch it in a little bit and is just, here to kind of reminisce and hear about it for the first time in a while. Voyager's first attempt at using a quantum slipstream drive that they've built using Borg tech and Bornite crystals. They've run all the simulations. It ends in disaster with only Harry Kim and Chakotay surviving. And then 15 years later, they attempt to change the past to prevent the crash. Felix actually puts Felix 7 Shots Dax. They changed their name. I like it. Premise: Harry fucks up.
I was gonna read this one.
I'm sorry, Giraffe.
No, it's a great chat. Yes.
Yes. Facts. Harry fucks up. I want to kind of get your guys' quick take on how this episode fits into Voyager's like that overarching theme that the show always has of hope, the survival of like being in the Delta Quadrant and trying to navigate all the shit that they had to over 7 years. And a big one, because we talk about this all the time with Voyager, second chances. What do we feel about this, Hawk?
Yeah, this one really kind of plugs into those because they immediately with the cold open and that and the frozen, like, tundra that like, we see 2 nameless Starfleet officers wandering through and that it looks, desolate. It's desolate. And then getting that image of the ship from above and that and realizing this is Voyager, this is where we're going. Yeah. Hope, survival. I mean, those are 2 big themes in that because like, the cold opening says, it's like all hope was lost. And then like going through the ship and that and seeing everybody's like well-preserved bodies and that just like, covered in snow and ice. It's such a dark opening for a show, right? But then like second chances and that, why are they there? And that we find out pretty soon. It's this episode more than anything, it really kind of draws into those themes that Voyager plays on, being a lone ship in the Delta Quadrant, relying only on, their crew and like how tight they were. And seeing like how far they would go just to even fix like, something that technically is unfixable. Yeah. That's what that makes the show like so good. This episode really good and taps into all those themes that you mentioned.
Nice.
Moi?
Yes, you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
I was
Usually you know
muted.
my name.
I said it and I realized I was muted.
You were muted. Even better. I have to say, I love when Star Trek draws tragedy, and tragedy in the idea, not, the tragedy, but a tragedy is when when you start the story, that it's going to end poorly and that people are going to die. And the question is not, there's no hope for you as a viewer because it's not going to happen, right? It's beginning of season 5, right? So they're not going home at that moment. It's not happening. So it's not going to work. But the question is how it's not going to work and how are the character gonna grow or die or change or evolve through the hardship. And it's good for us because it helps us be more resilient, right? It's catharsis. You need to like be, oh, I know this thing is not gonna work, but I'm gonna purge my emotion for it. And I love when an episode starts with something like this, telling you, "Yo, it's not gonna work.
Shit went wrong."
Shit went wrong. Shit is gonna go wrong. They're not going back, but you have to sit here and admire their grit, their resilience, their will, their I don't know, their strength, going through the hardship. And I think it's a good metaphor. We should watch more tragedy right now.
It's true.
Shit is gonna go bad, but how you gonna go through it is what makes the story. And especially, I feel with the crew of Voyager, it's always such good stories because they fucked to start with, so you know that they're gonna keep having them go through these things. And I'm gonna be a literature teacher a little bit, but it's like 19th century naturalism and so on. It's the question of like the naturalist laboratory where you put people in a box and you have like stuff happen in a story, not in real life. People, we don't do that, but you have horrible stuff happen to them, and you look at how they react and how they grow through it. And I feel that anytime something like this happens to Janeway, we're talking about Year of Hell, which is one of my favorite episodes, or even The Killing Game, or Timeless, or Endgame. You always have, how is she going to go through it is fascinating. And the twist with that episode is that it's not about Janeway. And that's where it becomes a very good episode, because you change the usual parameter of a Voyager episode.
Well said. Very well said. Again, by the way, I think we have someone else who worked on the show in the chat, Holden Modify. I did early viz just to see if it was possible about the snow and like rendering times and how the rendering times back then sucked. So they went no, and they went practical effects, which is awesome. So if you actually did work on the episode, let us know, because that's freaking awesome to have people in the chat for that. I want to read Felix Sevenshot Dax's comment again, because they're on fire with the chat tonight. Time is the fire in which we burn. Really some parallels to Generations if you think about it, which is such an interesting thing to say, because as I was doing the watch along with everybody last night, I found it really interesting that if you watch as B'Elanna's about to do the champagne break, it's this almost the same theme when the champagne is floating about to hit the Enterprise E during the Generations opening credits.
Oh.
Then when Voyager is crashing, it is almost the same music as when the D is crashing in Generations. So, well said. Well said. Donnie is in the chat. Welcome, Donnie. Trekking Up North. This is a great episode, guys. Good to see you up here. Great stuff. Let's talk about...
Be famous.
Yeah, apparently. I want to talk about why this is my favorite episode. Some of you guys have talked about like personal connections to episodes. I didn't have really a personal connection to this episode. This is just a great episode of Star Trek, and every time I watch it, I am like, oh yeah, this is my favorite episode of Star Trek. Like, I get goosebumps every time I watch it. It's just got everything I love. It's got a good time travel romp. It's got Jordy in it. It's got it's got the ice, and like there's like Hawk. I think both of you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, have played Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Yep.
It's got that, like when I played Horizon Zero Dawn and you're going through these like lush, like, open fields, and all of a sudden you fall into a crack and there's like these 10,000-year-old computer systems like still working and stuff. It's like, it's got that visual, even though, Voyager did it first. It's just such a, it's hard to watch because of like what happens, even though you're pretty sure at the end of the day they're going to save the day. It's just such a melancholy way to open an episode, and that's what just like captivates you. It's like, okay, we are going to keep going with this, and it's fantastic. things that make this episode stand out, I think, like more than Voyager episodes. Obviously, it's the 100th episode of the series. It's always going to be big. You always try and do something big for your 100th episode. And then I was reading Memory Alpha prepping for this episode, and one thing that I really loved reading about this is that for this being the 100th episode, Brannon Braga really wanted this to be able to stand on its own, like among other Voyager episodes, but basically have this be Voyager's City on the Edge of Forever, which I would say that.
I didn't know he said that. I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
City on the Edge of Forever. See me, Braga.
Same page. Yeah, and I think you can say this episode does stand on its own and I think that realm with City on the Edge of Forever. Some big moments like really like stand out to me watching this and rewatching it again for I countless times watched this episode, but watching again last night, Harry being the one to convince Janeway to make this flight, and Janeway agreeing, right? Because later on Janeway then convinces Chakotay because he's like, you show these charts, this data to any Starfleet engineer back home and they're gonna say, are you out of your goddamn mind? Like, this flight shouldn't have happened. But Harry's done. Harry's always wanted to go home more than all of them. And then Janeway's at a point, 4 years, so many months and days that she says that they've been out. She's done too. She wants to get back home now. It's been too long. Like, the fact that she's like, are you with me? And Chakotay says, probably in the back of his mind, no, but he's with her because it's Catherine, right? And he'll basically go to the ends of the earth for her. The obvious, like, one of the big ones is seeing Voyager crash. Like, that is such a moment. Like, you do like a top 10 oh my god moments of Star Trek and you put that in here every single time. I don't care where you place it, but it's in that top 10 of like what the fuck Star Trek moments. And yeah, I mean, and then Starfleet, chasing down outlaw Harry and Chakotay, and Jordy being the one to chase them down. It could have been anyone, but there's something really cool about it being Jordy, who has gone to the past and to the, to change the future. So it's like another cool parallel. There's so many.
Guy went to the future to change the past, went back to the past to change the future. Like, pull the TVA.
Hold and Modify, who yes worked on the show, is Kevin Q here. When we got the script for this episode and I was reading through it, I usually skip everything and read only effects highlights, but oh my gosh, you knew you had something special, right? I want to talk to you guys about Garrett Wang being the one to lead episode 100, and I want to read this quote. If someone would have said to me, the 100th episode next season is going to feature Garrett and Ensign Kim, I just would have laughed. Joe Manosky, who co-wrote the episode with Brannon Braga and Rick Berman, speculated.
Sorry.
It was just inconceivable. Later, he would go on to say he was great. What did you think about Garrett being the one to lead episode 100 and this episode specifically, Hawk?
About freaking time, right?
Yeah.
You got those certain Harry Kim moments from different episodes, and especially that one, like when he basically the alternate universe Harry Kim was the one who survived and went to the other Voyager. But to have him
never stop talking about this.
No, it's so true.
To have him basically as a lead role in this episode, and to see like where he was like 15 years after that, and seeing him like basically just like a different guy. There's no more befuddled ensign. That clever guy that's just went there to do. He's a different guy. When he introduces the doctor to Tessa and that, and the doctor asks who she is and that, and she gives some sort of answer, and he's like, they're having sex.
Yeah,
they're pretty much attached to the hip.
The no bullshit Harry.
They're no bullshit, no fucking. This is a guy on a mission. Yeah, and you can see it in his face, and like little kind of the long hair and everything. He burned his career at Starfleet in that because like he when he found out there was something he could do about it, and he basically became a criminal because he knew there was he had to get back and do, if there was a chance to do this, he had to be the one to do it because he still blames himself. A little of that, part of that's on him, part of that's on Janeway, but like he bears everything, and it's fascinating to see him in this state.
Trav?
I think I have like I don't know, because okay, take Tony Stark. Okay, when like the guy comes with the crazy plan, the numbers are against me, but you know what? This is gonna work. It usually works, right? And then they're like, "Oh, against all odds, we succeeded! Woo, way, woo, America!" So, the thing is that Timeless is about somebody doing that and fucking up and killing everybody, and then leaving with guilt all his life, so much that he's gonna go back in time to change that, right? And it's Star Trek, we can go back in time, that's great, but like in real life, you can't. And when you fucked up, you fucked up. When you killed everybody, dead forever. So I'm a bit on the fence about it being Harry Kim, because I feel they were like, which character can we fuck up and be like, hey, see, they were fuck ups and they killed everybody. Pooh, what a loser. And they were like, Harry Kim. Like, it couldn't be like, I feel it would have taken, like, for me a lot. I'm glad he got his episode. It's a great episode, but it's still an episode where they were like, you know what? We can do that to Tuvok, so we're gonna do it to Harry Kim. And I'm like, it would have been super interesting if it were Tuvok. Like, it's a weird premise that it's the ensign that was never promoted, that everybody knows he's a fuck up, and everybody kind of like, don't like really trust him. He goes and like does whole deck adventure with Tom Paris. And when Tom Paris is like, there is a problem, it's not gonna work, they trust Harry Kim. Like, there's a thing at the beginning that for me, I'm like, oh, that's a great story. That's fantastic. But they didn't want to burn one of the most respected characters in their opinion. So they were like, let's go with Harry Kim. And I am a bit like, it's a great Harry Kim episode because it's a great episode, right? But at the same time, I cannot not be thinking why they chose Harry Kim to do all this. Because at the beginning, it makes no sense that he's the one like correcting the data. Why is it him? Why is it not B'Elanna? Why is it not Tom Paris? Why is it not Tuvok? Why is it Harry Kim of all people?
I definitely I think it has something to do with like fact if it was Tuvok 15 years after and that, he might have been way too logical about the whole thing on that, and would probably have been fearful
but
about
B'Elanna. Think B'Elanna?
B'Elanna, yeah, she would
have been like a badass. I know. But I'm glad it's Harry Kim. It's a great Harry Kim episode, right? Yeah, but I'm too broken inside. I'm like, there's some shenanigan going on here.
Matt has a good...
Matt, yeah.
Go ahead, you read it. Go ahead.
Matt had a great point because Harry wears his emotions on his sleeve with the guilt and that. It takes, like, because the journey he goes through in that, like, things just keep fucking up in that. And he, he's not confident in the way a lot of the other cast members were, the characters. He gets frustrated pretty easily in that,
I totally agree. It's a great story like that. I'm like, because he's the emotional one, but imagine you're on a ship and you need somebody to run calculation. You send the Borg, you send the Vulcan, you send the engineer, right? You don't send the ensign. This is crazy.
I think you have a point, because it would have made more sense to have Tom piloting the Delta Flyer, like, because at the end of the day, that's just like the dude. He literally crossed the warp 10 threshold. Like, the dude knows his stuff. And you could still have Harry reconfirming those calculations on board Voyager, but it would have made more sense to have Tom in that position. That also would have been a really great parallel. If it was Tom on the Flyer 15 years later, would he have to like burn his relationship with his father to try and fix the pat? Like, that would have been cool too, like a little Admiral Paris drama.
They already did the Tom Paris fucks up and ended up in the bridge. So I think, for me, it's always like, every time I watch this episode, it's like, why the fuck did you ask Harry Kim to do the calculations when you have a Borg, a Vulcan, and a badass engineer like B'Elanna Torres? Like, what? Why him? But I do think it's great that the 100th episode is about Harry Kim, because in the end, like we know how much like Garrett Wang got fucked up about like a lot of things in that show, like the whole thing about his last name being Kim and them saying he's Chinese. Like there's crazy stuff about this, right? And I'm glad that one of the best episodes of Voyager is a Harry Kim episode, but I cannot not stop my brain being like,
Yeah, fair.
You didn't want to burn another character.
Garrett played older Harry with like the gray slicked back hair as if he was a version of Mel Gibson's character from Lethal Weapon, Martin Riggs. Just didn't care anymore. Full focus on the job and the mission. Had nothing to lose. Yeah. What do you think about this, Hawk? I know you're probably a big Lethal Weapon fan.
I did like it back in the day. Not so much nowadays.
Well, Mel Gibson's a piece of shit, but we won't go there.
Yeah, pretty much. But
that too.
Yeah, the one thing I do wonder is that when you're on the run, do you not have time for like a quick trip to the barber or the salon and that? Because like, being on the run seems to signify that your hair gets all long and just kind of disheveled. So, yeah, like as I mentioned earlier, that like this Harry Kim you see the 15 years later, and that he's way different. Weathered by the tragedy and not able to find a place outside of it. It seems in that, and you can tell that he's tried in that. They mentioned a lot of the things in that he tried in that. He's like, therapist told me in that his survivor's guilt. He's like, that didn't really take for him. He felt guilty, but he couldn't rationalize it. As a byproduct of the tragedy, and that no, it was a mistake that he made, something he pushed for, and then finding out when he found out there was a chance of being able to reset the clock on it, then he took it. Despite everything, both him and Chakotay knew that was a one-way mission, and like they didn't care.
Not one bit. I mean, literally, and Chakotay even had, a girlfriend. She was like willing to sacrifice everything.
Poor woman got fridged right away.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
She was so nice too.
Yeah. Giraffe, what'd you think about the way that Garrett approached playing this older Mel Gibson-ified version of Harry?
I like old Harry. I like old Chakotay. First of all, I say I like them because they do look like older version of the actors. They didn't overdo the makeup. When in TOS they make them old and you're like, what happened to their faces?
So bad.
So bad. I feel it's a good subtle approach of like making somebody older. I like the long hair. I feel like at one point, you're done. I mean, not Hawk, obviously, is hiding his long hair somewhere, but
hasn't been programmed in yet.
Yeah, exactly. But I like that he is desperate. You see that it has eaten him up for so many years. I mean, fair. Like, he killed everyone. I mean, I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's like survivor guilt, right? And survivor guilt is such a terrible, terrible thing because you get to leave and the others did not. And what do you do with this? And I like the Star Trek universe where you can go back. But I like when he's screaming like, I kill everyone. And like, yeah, you killed Voyager. That's fucked up, man. You need to fix that. I like the fact also that it's not an easy fix and that you see that guy has been like, he tells his story, right? He went on the ship, he went on the rescue mission, he tried. And there's this thing about Starfleet like giving up in the middle of it that we see with the Romulans, we see with so many other things. It's like, you know what? Rescue mission, too expensive. And you feel for the character. It makes you really like I'll do the same thing. I do the exact same thing. There's a way for me to go back and fix all that. I would do it. Still gets blown up to bits, which must have hurt.
Yeah.
And it's got to be so much worse for this crew in that, because like, Starfleet, obviously, in that if you're in Starfleet, you got to accept loss in that. But like for these ones trapped in the Delta Quadrant together, relying only on each other, and that the bond was just like so unbreakable that, like, 15 years on, it's like he was still tormented.
And Voyager went back for him so many times, like in one of my favorite archaeological episode, Emanations.
I'm gonna watch that tonight. Today's the anniversary of Emanations.
Oh, I have so many. I'll come.
Nice.
We're doing a.
We can do an impromptu watch along. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the only Star Trek episode with good archaeology. So big up Voyager. But also, like, they went back for Harry Kim. They did not lose faith. They tried to find him. And I think over and over again, you have this thing where Janeway's like, no, we're gonna go back and we're gonna grab that person. And even when they lose, what's that episode where like they lose that woman and she comes back and she's from an other like alien race by that time because
an
they're like
alien race found her and like genetically put her.
That's
back
one of
together.
my favorite episodes. By the way,
this episode is such a mind fuck because you're like, oh my god, what do I do with this information, Voyager? What do I do with this? I don't know how I feel. But there is this thing where Janeway does not leave people behind, right? Or if she does, it's really bad and she questions it. And, it's over and over again. And I feel that Harry Kim just left everyone behind. Chakotay too, but I feel like Chakotay is less troubled by it somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I just want to go back to what you were saying real quick about what I think was really the time that broke Harry, and that was saying I took the first deep space mission available and we were hunting for Voyager. And you believe Harry when he says we were close. I could feel it. I believe him in that moment. I think he knew they were in the same area, and why Starfleet would stop looking is kind of mind-boggling. Like Dre said, too expensive. Like,
no, I understand why they stopped looking though. Because Voyager is such, I mean, we see it in Lower Decks. It's a mythical ship, right? Everybody was looking for them and hoping for them to go home. It's like the story that should have a happy ending. I mean, it's America. Stories have good ending, right? Voyager comes home. And then there's just this thing like they all died. And I think that to find it and to count the bodies and to be that's what happened brutal, and everyone is dead. It's like such a hit, especially at that time, because we're like Dominion War-ish, round-ish, right? Imagine having like these coup to the morale of like, we found Voyager and they're all dead. And here's all their bodies, and we're going to leave them there in the ice, like, So I do kind of understand being like, maybe they're good, maybe they're somewhere, maybe they stop and have the life. Who knows?
It's like Felix stacks were when the Romulan supernova crisis started to kick in too. So like other issues that Starfleet needed to,
abandon too. Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Hashtag justice for Romulus.
Let's talk about the stakes of fixing the past, because we talk about the Prime Directive and the temporal Prime Directive all the time. There's obviously a massive ethical and emotional dilemma here that Harry and Chakotay face, because they're not just changing the past, they are erasing 15 years of history. And I have a long thing we're going to talk about near the end of the show about this. But there's the question, should they even be doing this? Because as we find out later in the episode, there are risks to be doing this. Harry fails again later in the episode, and you're fucking around with 15 years worth of people's history. Hawk, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I know. Again, we got to talk about Avengers and that, because they obviously brought in the rule that, like, they're not changing their past. They're basically creating a whole new future. But then again, like they went in like to this knowing it, as I said, it was a one-way mission. They were just one step ahead of Starfleet in that, trying to complete this. They even basically put their ship into distress and that, trying to get away from a tractor beam, which leads to a warp core breach and that. Even when Jordy offered to beam them out, it was like, no, we got to do this. I'm going to say that they just said, damn the consequences, especially Harry. I mean, at least I think Chakotay was thinking about it. He had because he had a lot to lose in that. But this woman, I mean, like, come on, like, little way too understanding of a girlfriend in that. She
Pick me,
said,
girl.
yeah. It's like she is like, I know your heart has always been with that ship and with Janeway, and she's like, willing to basically like blow up like their timeline for it.
And she
She gave
just
her life for
dies.
it. She gave her life for this mission. God, Chakotay.
Giraffe.
I,
Oh, sorry. Were you
oh,
done? I'm sorry.
I think so. I mean, like they knew the risks. They knew that they had to be aware that they were they knew that they were altering their timeline and that. But again, timey-wimey stuff. It always does my head in.
Yeah.
I don't like that woman. I don't remember what was the question, but now I'm locked on that woman. But I'm like, that character is so unnecessary. Tell me what she brings to the episode. Nothing. Like, oh, Chakotay had like a life and replaced Janeway with, Wish Janeway over there, and is like, see, that man is ready to like do anything. And I'm like, why is this woman here? What are you doing, girlfriend? No
It
dick
begs
is
the
that
question.
good.
They
Don't do
needed
that.
they needed the
Collateral?
no, they needed the person behind the wheel. They needed the wheelman.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, it's true. They needed a wheelman. Chakotay and Harry had to do the mission. They needed a wheelman, or
Fair.
wheel
They
woman.
could- I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Woman. I don't know. I feel like she's just like she just makes me sad. I'm like, why are you here? What are you doing? It's like your friend was doing making bad decisions. It's like, what do you mean? He's like hunting for his old ship and ready to erase 15 years. I'm like, girl, dump that guy. Don't. What
Yeah.
was the question, Julian?
Oh no, I mean, I like that we brought this up because it's important to talk about. But the question was, should they even be doing this? The risks, the
Oh,
ethical and
no.
emotional dilemma of it all. Yeah.
Listen, like I feel like so that's why I like, for example, The Boys as a show. It's like the story, like you have all these heroes who are doing the Lower Decks. You have all these people like taking decision, making shit, and you're just like the small guy there, and you're like, well, I get fuck my life, fuck me, fuck everybody, and I think there's such an ethical problem into putting your needs above every single living thing ever, which is crazy. Harry, you fucked up. You killed like 200 people, but what 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 are the good things that happened after that? Like you don't even know, you don't even consider it because emotionally that's what you need. And I'm kind of like done with men putting their own emotional needs before like literally the need of the whole world. So maybe I would have said something else like a year ago. But it's kind of fucked up. Every time they erase a timeline, it's kind of crazy. And that's where I like the Avenger more because there's this whole thing about chat help me because I suck at math. But if you cut a timeline, it becomes like two different timelines.
Yeah.
But if the timeline is already twisted and already been fucked up with, and you cut it, it becomes a longer timeline. Have you seen this thing? What is
Yeah.
it called? Like I don't remember. It has a name.
I know what you're
There's no
talking
math
about.
people in there. Yeah, okay. So I feel that at least in the Avengers, they were like, see, Tony Stark, he knows not to trigger the fucking TVA. And they change the timeline in a way that adds time to it, but not erases everything. And I feel that Voyager has this thing, I mean, Voyager or Star Trek in general, where, Starfleet and your heroes, they're like more important than anybody else. And I'm like, sure, why not? But what about what LaForge says? It's like, yeah, my dude, like, I had a life, I did stuff. What happened? Is Captain LaForge still happening?
Yeah.
And it's so weird because, like, Jordy is the guy who would understand, like, why they were doing this. He, the relationship he had with his crew, they were tight, beyond like the normal. But even he realizes, like, it's like you're going to be screwing up so many other people's timelines, and that you don't know the consequences of this. This is why there's a temporal, prime directive in place. please don't do this.
Well,
Even I wouldn't do this.
And Kung brought this up in, I believe, their mailbag, and bringing it up now too. Jordy should have tried harder to stop them. Which
he blows them up.
he does. I mentioned that too, but it does take him a long time to blow them up. I feel like it's apples and oranges. Kung also brings up a great point, though, going about, I have opinions on this as well that lean towards drafts. You wonder how different things would have been without presumably the Borg being destroyed and the Protostar not being launched.
I'm here for changing the timeline. At least wait. I'm here for changing the timeline. I'm here for first contact. Yeah, fuck the Borg. I'm not saying it should not be done. I'm saying that, the needs of the many.
Ethically, it shouldn't be done. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The need of the many. At one point, he's like, it's literally the whole population of the whole galaxy, Yeah. Or the whole, Federation. Or even the whole Earth. And 200 people on Voyager. And you're like, I understand that emotionally you need to do it. I do get it. I fucking get it. But also at no point he questioned himself. And that's my problem.
No, it was a singular focus.
Yeah, if I had to do it, then I'd be like, okay, I need to go back and do something to stop, I don't know, not to stop the pandemic because that's way more than 200 people. But, stop something that killed 200 people. And I'm like, yeah, but then what? Then what happens?
Yeah.
And he never questions it. There's this, no, I need to save them because they saved me and they saved other people and I need to save them, which I understand, but also it's kind of fucked up.
It is. As you mentioned earlier in that, maybe this is what was supposed to happen to Voyager in this timeline.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that a lot. Yeah.
But what happens when they get back? They, with an experimental, warp drive and that.
Well,
it changes things. It
fucks up the Borg.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he doesn't know that, and he doesn't question it, and that's kind of my
Yeah.
And it's a great kind of answer to what was going to be our next question, which I think we'll skip over, which is Star Trek's having a very, overarching theme of responsibility and consequences, both which Harry just completely ignores in the situation. And one thing that I always think about in this episode is, am I with Harry? Would I have done this in Harry's position? I don't think I would. I really don't. And I've never, that's one of the things that I love about this episode. I don't agree with Harry's decision to do this. Obviously it happens and Voyager keeps going as a television series, but it's really fucked up. He pulled, dude, we talk about Year of Hell all the time. He pulled an Anorax. He did his own Anorax thing.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, I really don't think he would have should, and I don't think I would have I don't think I would have done it.
No, I think Borg invasion, I would have gone back. And
exactly. Yeah, of course. There's a huge difference.
Picard season 2 in fascist America.
I mean,
soon.
Yeah.
But I would have gone back for this. Yes, but just Voyager, it's kind of insane. It's insane that it doesn't even ask the question.
If it had massive ramifications for the universe, which doesn't seem to have, Jordy, Chakotay's getting laid, Jordy's a captain, Harry's Martov from fucking Lethal Weapon, it seems like not a bad world.
If you had the Borg show up and we're we had a solution to kill the Borg and they invaded, okay, I get it, but I don't know.
I mean, if at the very least, it's an exploration of what trauma bonding does to people,
Yes, so true.
Right. Them, together for all those years on that ship and that, the tragedy of it and that it's kind of a tragic episode in that sense, and that we're watching a person in that who just can't hack it. Dealing with it and that because of what they went through together.
Tara just wrote earlier, Jurassic explaining why Harry is still an ensign. And it's very true, right? Harry, we mentioned this earlier. Harry was the one that was always trying to bend the rules to get home. He wanted to go through the damn micro wormhole, when they found the Romulan ship. It has been his his sole focus. And I think that did hold him back a little bit. We always joke about why he was an ensign the entire series, but he was
Racism.
well, besides, Berman and racism, story wise, the dude's very eager, and sometimes that doesn't get you too far.
The youth is eager.
Yeah. Let's talk about so the other stakes, the things that they need, right, to even make this happen. The thing that's crazy is they find Voyager, and they basically have to live on a prayer that 7 of 9's corpse is like very well preserved. Like, how did they even know, right? And the implant,
all of this was a risk.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
just got lucky.
The implant in her cortical node like being the key, along with the Borg temporal transmitter that Harry basically became a criminal for, he stole. Now, I read this today, and I find this really cool. There's a very interesting theory about this, that he stole because he mentions a crashed Borg cube in the Beta Quadrant.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
You know what I'm going to say?
Oh, no.
The theory is that Harry stole this off of the Borg artifact from Picard season 1.
Yes.
And then when a fan brought this up to Michael Chabon didn't deny it.
Okay, let's be honest. Sorry, Hawk, but Chabon is kind of like making things up
As he goes along. Yeah.
Which is perfect because I love his shit. Like, it's not a slide, but he also will be like, yeah, it's like everybody's convinced that one Borg cube is the same fucking Borg cube all the time. So it's the Borg cube that Zero disables, right?
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
So that's Borg cube that Zero fucks up in Prodigy, that is sick and dormant because of Janeway, the one and only. Then Zero goes in, kind of like wakes it up-ish. Then he gets like fucks up by the Romulan, we suppose. We don't really know what happened for it to be like, I mean, Wolf we find out. Oh, we don't know. Like, why is it an artifact? But something happens that Star Trek will most probably tell us at one point or another. And then it's crashed by 7 on the planet.
Synth planet,
like the weird synth planet. And you're like, it's always, there's one Borg cube. This is one.
It's the same one.
Yeah.
The same one. But right away, I was like, yeah, that Picard's Borg cube. Like, there's no way they didn't take the ID from that. Like, come on.
Yeah. Hawk, what do you think about this? And like you were talking about how like this is just a giant risk from the get-go.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I love the theory. That's the same Borg cube over and over. But yeah, like this was always, this was always a risk in that. You wonder about his motivations for doing it. When we talk about trauma bonding and that, and I mean, like, my mind keeps going back to like that thing about like being on the sea. Sailors on the sea. It's the same reason why SOS is just a universal thing. If no matter who you are, if you're on the sea, doesn't matter if you're Russian or German or whatever, and that you hear an SOS from another ship, and that it's like there's this inherent duty for you to answer, right? Kim is going through that in this episode, and that it's like it's an SOS. It doesn't matter like what if it's the right or wrong thing to do, in that he's just been so long with this crew at sea, and that he knows that he's their only lifeline, their only hope of having even a chance, and he throws everything away to do it.
Yeah. Draft, I saw you getting
I have like more things. So I see the chat, and I'm like, I am an Aunt Ramda apologist. Let's be honest, that the Aunt Ramda was so crazy she broke the Borg cube, and I'm here for that story. I'm so here, but let's be honest, that's Romulan propaganda. Yes.
Yes, but we love Romulan propaganda.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I'm like, yes. She was so like up there because of the admonition. She broke a Borg cube, but that also sounds like a fucked up story. But yeah, I like the official story, but what's the real story?
Yeah.
I love Aunt Ramda, who also is played by the same actress that plays Hetty in Ghosts. Incredible actress. I don't have her name right now. But,
All right.
My only thing I wanted to add is that can we leave 7 alone? Leave 7 alone. Like, fucking up with her corpse is so messed up.
The whole tomb raiding aspect of it was.
Right.
I mean,
I'm glad someone brought that up. Yeah.
The tomb raiding aspect, like seeing just the corpse of Janeway there, and like I'm just like, there's
Tom,
a lot
yeah.
of things that I'm like, it's kind of fucked up. And
But
then
that's
to
what I
just
think
like,
makes the episode so good. Is it like it fucks with your head seeing
well,
that?
but I agree, but the problem is that their characters don't react to it. And that's always my problem is that, yeah, I understand why they're doing it. I think they should be doing it in their own like thing, but also like women corpses being fucked over like kind of literally also is a thing. And I thought like, with all the thing of like Jerry Ryan being there like for, her plastique and her body and all
Yeah,
this and
fair.
then having her corpse, I was like, this is kind of fucking messed up. Like, it's kind of like, ugh, TV from the fucking 90s. Like, I saw that and I was like, bad
Yeah.
taste.
Yeah.
Like, I would understand if they had collected the implant. I don't know, but like again, fucking with like a woman corpse is kind of like gross. And I understand it's not a problem. Maybe it's a me problem, and maybe it's also a thing that TV and also society has evolved on this. But I'm always icky about it. Like they look at Janeway corpse and they don't bury her. They don't like. I don't know. There's like some things where I'm like, you're
I
so into it, and there's no moment where the character pause about seeing
Chakotay
the
pauses.
corpses.
Chakotay pauses because there's a moment where he's like talking to what's her face up there. And he's like, I need you to hurry up because this is not a happy reunion. Like I think Chakotay is actually pretty frazzled when he sees
But then they just like
Catherine.
carry her corpse and have her in
Yeah.
a fucking like
No,
blower,
I
and
get
I'm just
that.
like,
I think I don't want to discredit how you feel about it because I think it's very valid. I will say as far as like not reacting to it, I feel like part of that is that they think they're going to succeed, so it doesn't matter, right? Like they can't be emotionally attached to it because this isn't a reality that's going to exist anymore, if that makes sense.
I get that.
Yeah.
But there's also a moment even left like it's not going to be a reality where that's her actual fucking
No, I
corpse.
get it. Yeah.
And there's a moment where you're like, okay, maybe I'm gonna erase the whole thing, but it's still fucking weird. Like I was like, ooh, they're messing with her fucking corpse. Like, and the real Voyager, like the non-dead Voyager, will never know about this. They don't know what they did and how. But like, I feel that the character of Seven or even Annika Henson is a character that's constantly violated.
I would agree with that.
Violated by the Borg, violated by the show, violated like over and over again. And then it's the same thing that Deanna Troi. Like they use her brain to send her like an important message, but by fucking up with her corpse. Like it's just like icky. And I think that if like the character of 7 of 9 was not also like at the beginning just here for like her body, there's a thing like in Voyager where like I'm very icky about how they treated 7 on so many different things, and it's one more thing where I'm like, I don't know. I'm like,
I mean,
could have been done better.
Like
I understand
they could
everything,
have written some like Trek technobabble where like the thing that Harry stole was able to do all of that without fucking with her corpse.
No, but
so I get
understand
it. Yeah.
it's gritty, like they need to like get a corpse, they need to do all this. They're like ready to do insane thing. But I feel that for the audience, it's like something that is unaddressed and it's something that is just normal. And it's like not great,
Yeah.
But it's also TV from the 90s. Like when I watched it way back when, I didn't have that reaction at all. And now, like being a woman in my 40s, I see that and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. And we have a lot more knowledge about like how Jerry was treated.
That too. Yeah.
Going back to what you said, Hawk, about this just being a giant risk and so many things had to go right and they actually didn't go right. This all also hinged on them being able to reactivate the Doctor, who also, I want to talk about this with you guys because we've been talking about should they have done this in the first place. They reactivate the Doctor, and not once does the Doctor question the whole moral dilemma of all this. One, I want to get your take on them risking that even being a possibility, and two, the Doctor in this episode on board the Delta Flyer helping them.
Yeah, he's pretty much like fully committed, from the get-go for this, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't even question it, but like again, how do
Well,
you,
he
how do you
questions
explain
it.
that?
Kung is sorry. Tara's right. He questions it for like a second.
Yeah.
They give him a choice
They
also.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
But
And he goes
again,
along with
like,
it. So
yeah, he very much goes along with it in that, it's like, oh, your plan is to, take, Annika's, Seven's corpse back and, basically dig around in it for something cool. Here's where you need what you need. The interplexing beacon and that, so he was actively participating, but like he's at the end of the day, like, you still remember he's a medical EMH hologram and that, no matter how much he's evolved, he's as connected to this crew as anybody and that. And then he's realizing, like, I've spent like 15 years in a frozen tomb with these people and that. It's like, and they're presenting it, they're saying like they're giving him an opportunity to give them an opportunity to survive and that. So yes, he does go along with it, very much so. Like, even like, and the weird thing is like at the end, he's the one who basically gives Kim the pep talk that he needs to, make a decision. And like, with the little time that they do have left,
he's so
even
good
to,
in that moment too.
I know that's like,
Mr. Kim.
Yeah.
and as I said, a lot of things had to go right, and it's like, even like, that transmitter at the end when it was losing power and that he had to give up his mobile emitter because it's like they were about to blow up anyways and that, but like. Yeah, and that signified that even he had to sacrifice his own life and that to make this go. Like, again, trauma bonding, dude.
Powerful thing.
It's powerful stuff, and that it's like they never got over it. None of them did, not even the doctor.
Yeah, I love Doctor. I think Doctor is like, yeah, I feel for him. Waking up in that place and being, what happened? You blink and suddenly everybody's dead. It's been 20 years and like you're like, what do you mean? And there's this thing about the doctor that he's unable to control his own destiny, right? He's unable to control his own timeline, which is so horrible because we see it in what's the name of the episode? I love that episode. Witness? No. Yeah.
Living Witness.
Living Witness. We're saying where it's like he's awakened and like everybody's dead. It's been thousands of years, and you're like, and what up, dude? And I think there's something that is incredible about the doctor because he gets it, and he's the one who's like, well, now that you started all this and you pulled me in the middle of it, by the way, now you need to go through it. But what we're gonna do now? And he would have been the one that survived and live with all the guilt and the post thing. So I think it's great that he helps them, and that makes me every time I watch like Living Witness of Timeless, like so hopeful for the Academy and having the Doctor who is here like thousands of years later, 900 years later, and what kind of Doctor is he? Doctor that they just switch on years after? Is he a guy that actually survived 900 years and like knows all of the things? I think he's one of the most interesting concepts that they've done in Star Trek. But yeah, I love the Doctor. I'm glad he's here. I'm glad he's like
Yeah.
in for the ride.
Yeah. I want to talk about the, kind of talked about at the top of the show, but one of the biggest things that makes this episode so striking is how it opens with Voyager under the ice. But the striking visual of Voyager crashing, Janeway on the bridge, given the order to try and land the ship, and I think she knows that they're gonna die. It's brutal. Just that, and then just seeing, like Giraffe just talked about a lot, that haunting image of the ship frozen in the ice, the entire crew dead, but what we see later, them actually crashing, like what is that like? Like, do you remember when you watched this the first time, like how you felt, Hawk?
God, I can't even remember the first time I watched this, but it's thematically it's so interesting for this. It's all about like getting a second chance, but like that second chance relies on a certain moment of time, and the fact that they crash land on this planet and that is just like snow and ice that it just preserved them like some sort of a living monument, to them. I think they really. I know the writers had to be thinking about that when they kind of chose those aspects of it. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel. I mean, the Janeway, like doing everything they can at the end and that to try about it. But that's what good pilots do. Like good captain, good pilots, and that they're the people that are just trying every last thing in that towards the end of that until the plane flips over and the wings break off and that's it. Um, it's definitely it needed to happen, and it's like it's also one of my favorite things about this episode is the way it very definitely goes back and forth in time and that between the future and the past, that they actually build you up to this point where the crash is actually happening. I'm glad they it was directed like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Jeff?
I think the moment where the initial dampeners are down, I'm like, oh, everybody's gonna get like fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine initial dampeners are supposed to stop your body from going the speed of light and crashing into the ship basically. When it stops, everybody inside stops too, and they're crashing on a planet. And that I didn't expect even to see any bodies. There should not be any bodies. I understand it's Plotium, they need a body to function the story, but everybody should be goo at this point. There's no way there's anybody left. And I know that Kevin already left, but I want to know if they had just a Janeway mannequin going.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Because in Discovery for the Battle of the Binary Stars, they had they made all these silicone reproduction of people that were frozen to use. And I just want to know, did they have all these
Kevin left,
mannequins going
unfortunately.
around?
Yeah. Kevin, I know you said you're going to go and listen to the episode later. If you do want to answer Giraffe's question, email us at astrangenewpod@gmail.com, because I would love that answer.
Yeah, and I think it's just it's also grave robbing, in the whole thing.
It is. Yeah.
I understand it, but for me, it's the same thing than seeing the corpse in the Everest when people just go their merry way and walk next to the frozen people.
Yeah.
And it's always the question is well, it's also people and it's the whole mindfuck of that episode comes from that, right? These guys are so much the eye on the mission that they're we cannot stop to process any of this, and we need to go through. And I know that when I watched it, I don't remember my first time, but I don't think I've ever had that, oh my God, they're all dead. Because they kill everybody in Voyager quite often.
A lot.
Yes, I know.
I was like, must be Tuesday. But everybody in Voyager is dead. But for me, I remember that it really made me think of that episode. Not time amok, but the one in TOS where they're all frozen and they go to the planet and they all grab that crazy virus and they all go crazy and Spock cries. Help me, I'm tired.
I don't remember the name of the episode either. I'm not good with TOS. I'm not good with TOS episode titles.
Season 1 of TNG too. They did the same.
Naked
episode.
Now.
That's where
Naked Time.
Naked Time. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Naked Time, I was like, oh, it's a frozen planet. Look at this. I like when Star Trek does ice also, because I think it's fun. But I think it's a good plot device because then they have something that's totally sealed and totally intact. Which Strange World did too. I think there's something to explore more here, Ice Planet. I like them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to have these people that just abandon, lock away all their feeling, going through that base, the tomb of all their friends, and just stay the eye on the ball, which is kind of amazing. Because I know I would have not been
no, it is. It definitely impacts, no pun intended, the emotional weight of the episode, which is going to be my next question, but you just kind of hit it on the head. There is emotional weight, but again, they almost, you talked about Tuvok earlier, Giraffe, there's almost this logical, just straight line that they can't stop to do anything because they have to get on with the mission. I remember watching this first episode. It was the frozen of everything, and then it was I forget whether it was Chakotay or Harry, but undoing his jacket and seeing the all good things badge and knowing, oh shit, this is the future, and they've been dead a very long time. That was my whole oh shit moment. And then when they pan out and it says, NCC 74656, it's oh, okay, I get goosebumps just talking about it. It's a very cool moment. I kind of want to fast forward to How do you guys feel that compares to? We kind of talked about it in the Strangely Loop, other Star Trek shipwrecks. Hawk.
It doesn't really, because like take the most famous one, when the D crashes. I know in Generations, everybody survived. Even Spot survived.
Yep.
All the people
Even
we
the
cared
cat.
about. The cat.
Somehow the cat lived.
But all the people we cared about survived. This is like, as I said, it's like it's a tomb. It is like, it's a frozen monument to, like, the tragedy of it all. It hits harder. You know, in my head, I'm kind of stuck on like Giraffe talking about like the impact of their bodies.
No, go ahead. You can talk on that too. Yeah, please.
Because all I can think of now is that poor racer in The Expanse and that who went through the gate first and what happened.
If they had the guts, pun intended,
with the inertial
that's what they would have done. There's no body left in a starship that crashes into a planet with no inertial dampener. There's no way. Everybody's goo. Like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's definitely because of like what they were, how they ended up in that. It's way more emotionally impactful than any other Star Trek crashes.
Yeah, agreed. I think like the other crashes, like maybe Prodigy because hologram Janeway disappears, but also I was never like, oh, they're all dead. I mean, it's season 5, it's beginning, so I know they're all gonna be back at one point or another. And also, Voyager pulled that thing like on and on and on again, So I know that I was never like, oh, we're saying goodbye to everyone.
Yeah.
But I was definitely, I want to know how they're gonna fix that mess.
Oh, right. That's the big thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about LeVar Burton's impact, right? Because he directed and guest starred in this episode. The guest star bit was more of like Brandon Braga being like, I know we have you directing, but I kind of want to write you into this. How do you feel? And LeVar was like, I don't know how I feel. Write it, and then let's talk about it. How did we feel about him directing this episode and guest starring, Hawk?
I mentioned before in that it's important for him to be the one chasing them because, like, he would be kind of the only person who would kind of get it, which was why he was really kind of pulling his punches. He didn't just they were wanted criminals, but at the same time he's like, I get it. I'm going to try to bring you in. He offered them every opportunity. So I'm glad it was Jordy that went after him, because I thought that it's just nice to see LaForge up there as a captain of a spaceship, of a starship,
of a galaxy class starship,
galaxy class starship. But also, as I mentioned before, his direction of this episode was great. It's like there wasn't much wasted in this, right? It's like from the cold open, the way it to like establishing the story, in the future, and then having to go back to the past and revisit that moment and that. And he definitely weaved it in between in that, right up until the end in that, it's like when they're about to die in the explosion, going back and forth. It was just like he just brought all the tension to it. I don't think there was much of a wasted moment in this episode.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, there's definitely not like any wasted time in this episode. Like, I don't feel like there's any like filler scenes or anything for sure.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Tessa could have been
maybe, yeah.
If they had just like kept one other member of the crew alive and that for the story, she wouldn't have even been necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jordy LaForge was like, I'm always happy to see Jordy. Come on. What are you talking about? Like, I was like, yeah. My man. But also, I think that Harry Kim and Tom Paris are such a good parallel to Jordy and Data. Like these friendship of like being on the same ship and being the two weirdos and like being, yeah, we're gonna do like hologram stories together. Yup. And I think that, Jordy literally went back in time to save Data. And I'm like, yeah, I see that he's the best character possible to be like, yo, I get it. It's fucked up, but I get it. I don't agree with you. I don't want you to do it. But also, would I have done the same thing? Yeah, absolutely. Did I do the same thing? Yep. You know. So yeah, I'm so happy, and I love seeing Jordy anywhere, anytime. Just bring him back again and again and
Again and
again and
again.
again.
Yeah.
And again and again. I will always be happy. I remember the first time though I saw the episode and it was Jordy, and I was like, wow, the Force, yes. And I was like, he's not gonna kill them. And he actually does, which is kind of wow, you know? I mean, he tries to save them, I suppose, but yeah, doesn't. It's always good to see Jordy.
It's always good to see Jordy.
Even now, I rewatched the episode and I was like, it's good to see Jordy.
Yeah. I really love Jordy LeVar as a director. I think every time he's directed, he's done an incredible job. And one thing that I know that Garrett Wong wanted was this to be a two-parter or even a film, like Dark Frontier.
Ooh.
And it makes me think it's actually really sad that LeVar never got a chance to direct a movie, and this could have been it, because this is such a cinematic episode, right? And you can see how much money they put into it. I feel like maybe this episode loses something if it becomes a two-parter. I like that it's really a standalone, but if anybody could have directed it as a feature or a two-part episode, I think LeVar could have gotten the job done. That being said, again, I'm very happy that this is, like we talk about City on the Edge of Forever, a one and done. Yeah. Getting to see Jordy in the captain's chair, it's cool, right? Right? It's not just a captain's chair. We know how much he loves the Galaxy class. The fact that he gets the USS Challenger, which they named after the Challenger shuttlecraft, by the way. Yeah, it's just great. And I just love how empathetic he is, because Jordy's always been an empathetic character. And one of my favorite parts of this episode is Chakotay and Jordy's conversation. And, you know, where he goes, you know, if it was me in your place, like, I don't know, I'd probably be doing the same thing. And that Chakotay says, then, you know, I have to try. And Jordy, like, very emotionally says, and you know, I have to try and stop you. He doesn't want to, right? But Jordy is empathetic, but he is also duty first. And he's so good. And I'm happy that he was written into this episode, because I don't think it would have had the same weight if he wasn't. Yeah. Let's talk about we just talked about how well he directed this episode. I want to talk about how we kind of get like the legacy of Jordy after this episode, after the Next Generation, because we've seen like multiple different versions of Jordy in future episodes, and all good things. It doesn't really seem like he's in Starfleet anymore. I think he's like with the Engineering Corps. You know, in Picard season 3, he's running the Fleet Museum. Like, where does Captain LaForge, you know, where is his legacy? Does in the main timeline that gets put back together after this, like, does Jordy ever become captain of a starship? Does he just work like to do the Romulan relief effort and become a Commodore? Like, what is Jordy's legacy? I think it's also really interesting as well. Hawk, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, at some point he does have his own captaincy, right? Yeah,
I mean, maybe not.
He's not a captain in Picard, right? What is he?
He's a Commodore. He's a
Commodore.
Yeah.
He's Commodore. So above that, so I mean, like, you know, because there's still quite a few years in between than that. You know, even like if he was only like 5 years, you know, it's like 7 years. You know, it's like at some point, you know, he rises through the ranks. He's able to write his ticket. He's able to take that chair. Yeah. Yeah, there's still a lot of, like, you know, Jordy's past that is just basically unwritten. It's up for grabs.
Yeah.
And it's like being the captain is definitely got to be part of that at some point.
Yeah.
I want to see Captain Jordy.
Me too.
You know, I think it's like Captain Sulu's. These characters were like, oh, I want to see what kind of captain they are after all the thing I saw them go through, all the, you know, the conundrums, the adventures, the questions, and all this. Like, how does that inform somebody that becomes a captain? And I feel Star Trek has never given us that so far. Like, am I wrong? We never got like a series where the captain is, you know, a legacy character who was on the bridge. Did we?
No, not
I
really.
mean, Saru-ish, but it's not right the same,
I mean,
right?
kind of Seven as a first officer in Picard
Yeah,
season
but we
3,
like
but
see
not
her literally
really.
10
No,
seconds
but I
being
mean,
the
it's
captain.
that chair,
It's the chair, having the chair, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a question that we never really know. I mean, Captain Burnham is a good example. We see
Yeah.
her grow to captainship, and same. I mean, a little bit for Cisco. But the question of like, what makes you a captain? How? What informs you into captainship? Which is an interesting question,
Yeah.
and I feel that Jordy would be an interesting person, like to have, a true episode under his under his command. Uhura. I would watch that. I blame
Yeah.
Picard. I blame Picard for having her like captain of the Leon de Grants. But yeah. Because see, like that's the whole thing. That's always the lore for me in Picard. In Star Trek, but Picard did his first flight on the Leon de Grants under the captainship of Uhura. It's in Picard, right?
Yeah.
It's written somewhere. And it's like, wow, I want to know. I want to know how everyone inform each other, how everyone like, the power of the teacher, like how you like mold people. And I feel Jordy is such a character that would be fascinating to see in that chair. And then, he doesn't. I think I like to blame Harry and Chakotay for
Taking that away from us.
maybe actually he never became a captain. He just went to Commodore right away because all the things going on, and it's like Kirk going from ensign or cadet to captain right away. Like skips all the rank, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna blame Timeless for that.
Yep. And therein lies what I've been wanting to talk about all night, which is this fandom that we love and have been talking about for 5 years on this podcast now loves to talk about what's in the Prime universe and what's not the Prime universe. And a lot of like bad fans have bad opinions about like Discovery and Strange New Worlds and the Kelvin universe. And if you want to talk about true ramifications of the prime timeline, this is the episode. They don't talk about it, but this episode does seem to indicate that Voyager's fate was to crash and everyone was supposed to die, right? Timeless, like, is that example of severely changing the timeline. Like, and I like to argue that once this episode concludes and Voyager is saved, everything that we've watched after is no longer the prime timeline. It's not. It's a splinter where Voyager was in fact saved. Period. End of story. Like, I don't see how you could argue against that. Please do, Hawk.
I mean, again,
argue against.
It's the 90s and that it was a simpler time, and then we were all still operating off Back to the Future
The
rules.
90s were not a simpler time. Hawk lies. I was there. I remember. Don't tell me it did not happen.
I saw it happen. I watched it happen.
I haven't.
Don't tell me it didn't happen.
For the average viewer going back then, including myself and that, I always operated on the delusion that time was just this one stream, and that it's like the things that anything that happens and that disrupts it, or if you go back, that these events just keep kind of going on and that, or else you get erased. Like the kids in the photo.
Oh yes.
The idea that like a branch of the time could just kind of take off like that because of one change. It was we didn't. I don't think the audience at that time ever really questioned it. They didn't think this is a whole other timeline. What's going on with that one? Again, that's our naivety. But
I'm good.
But now,
Yeah.
but now, like you look back on this episode, and you cannot not think that they have broken away from their timeline and that. And this is everything that comes after is a completely different timeline. I can't get beyond that fact that it's if that rule applies for the Kelvin verse, then it's got to apply for here, doesn't it?
Okay, so I'm gonna adopt a Janeway here. I'm gonna be trying to understand time paradox. Don't. Like, there's no point in trying to, like, I know we're in fandom that loves like putting things like, but it's also, yeah, it's written in the 90s. Like, even if you think about TOS with like City on the Edge of Forever, already fucks up the timeline 17 times in one episode.
In one episode, yeah.
In one episode, and you're like, I feel that we need to recenter the story around like the characters, right? And I feel maybe people are fucking up with our timeline right now. I don't know. I'm still me, and I still see things through my lens of thing. And that's a question of like, will you try to like which story you're going to tell? And the story we're telling, it's a story which Voyager takes 7 years to go back to Earth, and that's the story they're telling, and that's the story we're following. I know everybody's so fond of the what ifs in this day and age. If the multiverse could die painfully and screaming, it would be my honor. But that's what now we're like obsessed as a society about the what if. But I feel that as a story goes, there's one point where it's irrelevant to try to think of, prime universe or not. Like, why would you care? Why would you care? Maybe it's not the prime, maybe it is, but who calls you the prime to Starfleet? I mean, it's in lower deck was like, we're the prime universe. No, we're the prime universe.
Yeah.
We're each the prime universe in our own eyes, right? So I feel at one point it's just like, people are gonna discuss this into the ground, but like, you don't.
Who
whatever.
cares, right? Yeah,
Who
right.
cares?
Right.
Is the story good? Is it going somewhere?
Yeah.
It's not so much for me that I care. Like, I've always said that, like, prime schmime, but like, it's fun to talk about with this episode specifically because I think it's like the most egregious violation of that, right? Like, it's not just like, cause and effect, like you were talking about, Hawk, where it's a time loop and it's over and over and over and they finally fix it. Or, something that happened like 1 minute in the future and then they can go back and fix it. This is 15 years of history of people's lives that have been erased, which I think is like, it's a big ramification. Obviously, Draft, your point of who cares because nobody's going to remember it anyway. Like, that's also.
It's not even that. I think like as a story, it's a good story.
Right.
And I mean, if you want really to go in universe, there's like the temporal wars. So anyway,
right. Is there actually a prime
knows.
timeline period? Yeah, right.
And I love the fact that like Strange New World, I know people didn't like this episode maybe, but I like the fact that Strange New World was like, you know what? Romans are still fucking in the timeline. So who knows? Maybe now the eugenic wars are in 2025. Right. Let's see.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's still a story being told anyway. And I feel that we're also paying for Marvel. We're talking a lot about Marvel today.
It's all right.
Marvel like trying to explain these like things, the TVA, the timelines, the sacred timelines, and all this. And I feel that this is not applicable for Trek. Again, we're following the Janeway who goes back to Earth in 7 years. Everything that happens is like branches, and we don't care about this because that's not the story we're telling.
And Pat SK88 in the chat has been talking about this, and I think it's a really good point to bring up. If you watch all 7 seasons of Voyagers and their dealings with the departments of temporal affairs, and there is you could argue that the Department of Temporal Affairs let everything happen with Voyager changing time and fucking around with time, because Voyager is really important to the destruction of the Borg, future technology. So the Department of Temporal Affairs was like, we're going to turn a blind eye mostly. Yeah.
I mean, I rewatched Trail and Tribulation recently. Like, speak about somebody going and altering the fucking timeline.
Yeah, right.
Back and forth.
Man.
Like to fuck over the Klingons, and I'm like, yay, let's go.
Oh man. This has been a ton of fun. I adore this episode. I have had a blast talking about it with you. It has made my days of sickness like feel like nothing. So thank you. I want to get your final thoughts on Voyager's 100th episode, Timeless. We'll go reverse order, Giraffe.
Love that episode.
Yeah.
It's a fun episode. There's so many things. It's a striking episode. Every time I talk about it, every time I rewatch it as a older person, I see other things in it. I take it differently also, I
Mhm.
feel. And the more life I remember, the more achievement I go through, the more fucked up I think it is to erase 15 years of my life. But sometimes I'm like, you know what, do that. Let's start again. So I feel that it's an interesting episode that talks to people because it's about grief. We didn't talk about this so much, but it's about grief.
It is,
It's
yeah.
about guilt.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the what if, and it's about also the question of if people had this opportunity to go back in time, how many people would go back time and time and time again to erase a bunch of things, and then what would happen to us, you know? So yeah, and we're happy they didn't die.
Yep.
So
Always.
good.
Yep. Hawk.
It's such an interesting choice for a favorite episode. Especially in Voyager and that, because you could have gone Year of Hell, or my choice would probably been the Thaw, because I love that episode.
Is that the Clowns episode?
The
That's the
clown.
clown
You like the
episode.
Clowns episode?
I love
Crazy.
Michael McKean, the actor who played him. I love that
Mine
episode.
would be Brides of Chaotica, okay?
That's a great
Yes.
choice. I don't know about the fucking Thaw, though.
Oh, well, it's also a Harry Kim Must Suffer episode,
It
right?
is.
Yeah, I
It
know.
is.
It's so fucked up. It's great. But this episode, yeah, looking back on it now, over 25 years and that, it's interesting because we've changed, obviously, and our knowledge have changed and that, it's like we're not the same people watching that episode back then as we are now, as we've kind of discussed tonight and that, in our discussion of temporal mechanics. But looking back, it is such a deep episode because, yes, it does talk about grief and it does talk about, being so driven to save the friends that you knew, that you kind of waste the life that you had. Uh, it's complex, and I love that. I love a story like this. It's that it can, it's almost like it can handle a dark subject matter without it really affecting the overall arc of the series and that. And it's like, this is why the episodes like this were great. These just as kind of one-offs. Because you could explore a damaged life in one episode. And then go back and reset.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah. Some great comments in the chat. Felix 7 Shots Dax, right? I changed my name today because the episode has my favorite Seven moment, inebriated Seven. So good.
After one
Yeah.
glass.
Yeah.
We're one. We're one is my favorite gif. I use it all the time. We are one.
We are one. We are one.
one.
Yeah. Pat SK88, Timeless is a great story. Just have to suspend disbelief for some things. Absolutely. And I just have to read this. Dumas Khan wrote 15 years change is not that bad. I don't know. I think any amount of years once you're erasing people's lives is
15 years. I did a lot in 15
I
years,
know,
yo, man.
right?
I don't want
I
this
got
to
a
be
9-year-old kid. Man, I've
Shit
done
happens.
a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Oh my god. Yeah, this is my favorite episode of Star Trek. What else can I say? We just spent an hour and a half talking about it. I will watch it whenever anybody asks me to. Let's get into some mailbag. Hawk, can you read JMC Treks, please?
Sure. JMC Trek wrote, Timeless is one of the best episodes in the series. I love that in the 100th episode, Harry got a lot of screen time. This might have been the only time we got to see a Harry Chakotay pairing. It's also a classic example of how underused Harry was on Voyager. It was, in my opinion, one of Garrett's finest performances in the series.
Very nice. And then Draft, can you take Matt Harker's, please?
Matt Harker wrote, if you think you can top this episode, don't even try. This episode really holds up more than 25 years later. I have to second that this is probably Garrett's finest performance of this entire run. I have to wonder, did they ever get the slipstream to work once they return to the Alpha Quadrant? Hopefully, one day we'll find out.
Hey, it's a good question. I'm going to just keep going back and forth with you guys because Tara wants me to read her mailbag at the end. So back to you, Hawk. You read NY Rowlights, please.
Sure, NY Rowlight wrote, I have to echo what everyone has said already about this episode being Garrett Wang's finest performance on the series. He could have done a lot more if given the chance. You also think cutting 10 years off the journey is worth a promotion for Harry. Damn right. Come on, 10 years off a 77-year journey. I liked LeVar Burton's cameo, but Jordy seriously should have tried harder to stop the Delta Flyer. Lethal Force would have been justified to save the timeline.
It's not wrong.
I know.
Not wrong. Yep. Draft, can you take Davey from Trexperts Quiz, please?
Hey, Davey.
Hey, Davey.
Hey,
From
Davey.
Experts Quiz wrote, back in the day, I would download the European trailers for upcoming Voyager episode over dial-up internet. Oh, boy. It would take me about an hour to get a 2-minute video. Australia was so far behind the US, and the trailers gave me a lot of joy. When the Timeless trailer came out, I must have watched it 100 times. It showed the scene where Voyager crashes, and it looked, sorry, I have my glasses, I don't see anything. It showed the scene where Voyager crashes, and it looked, and still looks, incredible. This 100% is my top episode list as well. So rewatchable.
Indeed, it is. And I will take us home with Tara's, who wrote, Timeless is one of my favorite Voyager episodes for so many reasons. It's really a solid time travel story. Okay, of course, there are plot holes like what happened to everyone else's 15 years. Well, they got erased. But other than that, fuck them. But other than that, it's pretty well conceived and covers most of the bases. Of course, Garrett shines, and I get some of my favorite JC material. Flowers and candles and close talking infused with innuendo. Yeah. And of course, that epic shot of Voyager crashing into the ice, which is still so damn good. And now, a limerick. The use of a new quantum slipstream drive goes wrong. Only Harry and Chakotay remain alive. Spurred on by survivor's guilt, the two attempt a time jilt. The interplexic beacon works, and the Voyager crew survive. And then NB, Harry still not promoted. True facts. Didn't happen. Yeah.
Maybe if he got 20 years off the journey.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. This has been great, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for Timeless. I just like, not just Timeless, but this has been a fun year so far, celebrating Voyager's 30th anniversary. Like, so much fun talking about, like, you know, I think we're gonna like watch this episode after we're done here. Like, it's Emanations, yeah. It's really, I love talking about Voyager. So more, please. We have our finale of our favorite episode series coming up next week with Eric. Eric is going, or are we?
Well,
2 weeks. 2 weeks, because
the 27th is the birthday of a very special
yes,
part of Star Trek.
I should actually know this because I put the schedule on our Instagram.
I don't know anything.
So let me double check this before. Okay, so sorry. In 2 weeks' time, we will wrap it up on the 27th with Eric's favorite episode. That is The Visitor. We're taking another quick break off of the favorite episode series because Hawk, next week is whose birthday?
John Delancey's.
And we like never have talked about Q on this podcast except for like Picard season 2.
Opinion about Q.
Yeah.
You know, the Q continuum is not very far from my home.
Yeah.
Just over there.
So yeah, we're gonna be doing the very best of Q next week. That should be a blast. But then yeah, join us in 2 weeks for Eric talking about DS9's The Visitor. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for the chat tonight. It was absolutely hopping. Love it. And then yeah, make sure you hit the like, subscribe button, the bell, all that fun stuff that keeps the pod going. We love you guys. We will see you in a week, next Thursday, for all the Q shenanigans. For Hawk, for Draft, I am Julian. Live long and prosper. Majram, sarcastic Vulcan salute. Good night.
Thanks for beaming into our podcast today. If you want to keep the hailing frequencies open, you can subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Like what you hear? Put in a good word with Starfleet and leave us a 5-star review.